afternoon. Like my colleague here, Dario, I am not an expert on atomic technology, unlike my colleague Dario. I'm also not an economist, but I'm going to talk about economics. And this presentation comes from the perspective of an outsider. I have been working in the field relatively short time, 5 years. My background originally is a biologist, then I worked as a data scientist in tech. So I have to learn this with a perspective that's not the usual professional perspective. And that led me to ask lots of questions, and a lot of this comes from my own research, but not only my research, but also my activism. And I want to talk to you first, I want to bore you first talking about externalities, which is a word here everyone is familiar with. And an externality, you know, it's a consequence that economic activity has that others have to suffer. And we talk mostly about negative externalities, and everyone in this room knows that nuclear has, it's the most responsible industry in terms of negative externalities because we have to take care of our spent fuel, waste, for the next 5 billion years or something like that. We need to account for every single nut and bolt in a decommissioning process, and we need to start saving for that from the moment that the first kilowatt gets put in the grid. We are subject to all of that, and as was said earlier here, where does the coal industry store their waste? In our lungs. But a side that is not talked about a lot, it's the positive externalities. And this is what I want to talk about today. And why there's an image of beekeepers here. Because this is one of the typical cases of positive externalities, because the beekeepers have their business, they're having their honey, and they're selling their honey, but all of these bees are fertilizing the fields of people around them. So there's a positive externality here. Another case of positive externalities is vaccines, but you know, I don't want to get in trouble when I get back home, so let's skip that one. And I think that everyone agrees here that healthy people is something good, right? It's great. So why don't we actually make that argument? Between 1971 and 2009, 1.84 million people were prevented from dying just because there were nuclear power plants around providing the power rather than coal plants or natural gas plants. We know this. This is actually an old paper. The figure now is likely around 2.5 million people or more. But there's not a lot of talk about it, and as far as I understand things, and the experts might correct me if I'm wrong, the economic impact of this is not factored into the economics of a nuclear power plant. And I tried to do some research, and the estimates vary widely. We have an estimate here for the state of Pennsylvania that assigns a health cost of $28 million per terawatt hour generated using coal. However, there's another study in Ohio where a single power plant has had health costs of more than $4 billion per year. Only one. So, if we will swap magically this for a nuclear power plant, instantly the costs are reduced $4 billion. Will these be factored into the economic of the plant? No. And then we continue hearing how expensive is nuclear. But you know what? We ourselves are not making this argument. This is on us. At Anthropocene, part of what we do is we try to study using real-time electricity grid data what happens when you shut down a nuclear power plant. And we have this website for Manshan, say Manshan. This is old. The figure I checked today, it needs 27 boatloads of coal. Talk to me later and I'll give you the website. But we have a monitor that every 10 minutes gets updated and updates the figure of how many extra boatloads of coal, how many extra CO2 has been generated, how many people will get sick, how many people will die, how many people will get seriously sick. But we don't still have a number to attach to this in terms of economic value, because that's a lot of research that involves epidemiology, and our data science group is only 1 year old and it's only 3 people. So we do what we can. But there is a lot of potential here, and we must collectively, as the industry, as the experts, as the advocates, we must put economic numbers, dollar signs, sorry, on this, because this is what policymakers care about. When you tell them this many million tons of CO2, whatever, but if the market in Europe is $70 per ton, and you transform this number into dollars, suddenly they start caring about. And we have a similar website for Belgium that just this weekend shut down a nuclear power plant. So we have this contradiction where, oh my God, we're gonna die, we're in a climate emergency, which we are. We're so dependent on Russian gas, and we don't like what the Americans are doing now. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna shut down a nuclear power plant to be more dependent on Russians and Americans. Excusez-moi. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that in Flemish. So now an action item here. Sorry. Every country, maybe every power plant needs to monitor this data, because all these dollar figures are going to be highly specific to the economics and the society of each country. So we need to monitor environmental pollution data immediately before a nuclear power plant shuts down. Where are people from Bangladesh around here? Yeah, you need to monitor what are the atmospheric conditions around the coal plants that are going to start shutting down when Rupur comes online. And you need to calculate the difference, and you need to see how much is the human impact of that, and assign a number to that, and say, our power plant has saved this many lives, has prevented this many illness, and has saved this many $1 billion, because it's going to be a number in the billions. Human lives matter, they have value. And make it part of the return of investment of the plant. There's a potential commercial opportunity here for a company that specializes doing this kind of audit. Number 2, reduction in carbon emissions. What I'm showing to you here is the electricity generation in Finland before and after their latest nuclear power plant, Olkiluoto 3, came online. Notice what happened to the coal. Coal was reduced nearly 80%, coal use, just because Olkiluoto 3 came online. When you calculate that in terms of, well, first, let's see. Biomass use was reduced 20%, fossil gas, -14%, hard coal, 70%. Fossil oil, that doesn't count because there's so little that it's fluctuation. But peat was reduced also 44% in a single year. And they tell you nuclear is too slow. Nuclear is slow in certain circumstances, but as the French have taught us, as the Japanese have taught us here, that you guys built a reactor in 3.5 years, nuclear can be fast. It's a matter of infrastructure and of political will. And we calculated alternate scenarios where there was no Olkiluoto 3, no increase in generation. The emissions will have increased 19.2%. And if the generation will have increased what it increased, but from all of your fossil sources, I don't include renewables here because you cannot dial up the sun or the wind, you will have increased emissions 45%. But with Olkiluoto 3, emissions actually came down nearly 60% in 1 year. When you transform this to dollars, depending on the price of the ton of carbon, assuming from $30 to the actual market price of the European carbon stock, carbon exchange stock, it goes from $120 million to $290 million every year. This is income that's literally vanishing in the air because this is not being audited, this is not being accounted for, this is not being traded. And if you assume that a plant, for the sake, this is a very simple toy model. Let's assume that a plant can generate $100 million per year at year 0, and continue operating, increasing its revenue from carbon credits 1% or 2%. In 50 years of functioning, and now we know that a nuclear power plant can function 80 years or more, the plant could generate $8 billion or $6 billion, depending on the yearly interest inflation or increase on the price of the carbon. So a plant like Rupert might end up paying by itself only on carbon emissions. This is without the income from the electricity itself. So we must identify carbon exchanges willing to accept the contribution from nuclear power plants. And if that's not possible, we need to build them ourselves. Emission reduction should be encouraged independently from the technology used to achieve it. I know that a lot of people prefer natural site solutions, but if we're in an emergency, we need to use every single tool we have. We don't have the luxury of, oh, I don't like this. And something that I learned from Futurama and our friend Bender is you can build a new one with, if you can complete it, you understand why I won't complete it. There is a third economic aspect that I want to talk about here, which is a reduction of the volatility of prices. We saw this very clearly in Finland. And this is a comparison of the prices of electricity between Finland and Europe. And we divided the prices in different periods. A period before the COVID pandemic, and then the dynamic changed. The pandemic had its own dynamic, and then the Russian invasion started, and it completely changed the dynamic. You can see that during the war, the prices increased a lot. And at the beginning of the war, and then the prices sort of come down. But you can see here that the prices in Finland further increase after Olkiluoto opens. And this is a comparison with Belgium. And our periods were similar to the reference period before COVID. And the Ukraine invasion, the shutdown of the OL3 plant and Tange plant. And it looks like despite these two power plants shutting down, the prices go down. Yes, it's true, but because that's a general trend. Yes, and you see that the prices are higher than what they were before COVID. For Finland, the reduction is higher. Why? Because here, these are the same periods that we classify, why we did for Belgium, but here is when they open the reactor, and you can see that there is a much higher reduction. Also, if you notice the scale, Belgian prices have always been much higher than Finnish prices. And this plot that looks like nonsense here, let me see if you can, you really can see. you can see here that Olkiluoto 2 comes offline, and there's a big increase of the prices. And every time that the power plants come down, there are spikes in the prices. And the most notorious one is probably this one here, when there was Olkiluoto 3 came down unexpectedly for a very short amount of time, and the prices instantly shot up. But when it came up, the prices went negative. So this is an extreme example of the fluctuation that happens when you have no firm baseline. And it is an argument to, you hear a lot of people saying that renewables and not nuclear should have priority access in the grid. To me, this plot is totally the opposite. And this is a wonderful paper recommendation that I can give you, where they found a smoking gun in Italy, in northern Italy especially, when the renewable penetration increased, they found that some plant operators were withholding information about the real capacity, and then when came the real when the grid was going to collapse and the real-time trading electricity comes, they suddenly discover that they have more capacity and they sell it at much higher prices, and the consumer ends up paying for that. And we suspect that a similar dynamics play in California, and we have the antecedent of Enron, and that's why California prices are so much higher. And we know, we have noticed this effect. We haven't been able to quantify it. As I said, we're a very young group, we're a very small group. We need help. But if we can quantify this, if we can say installing 60 terawatt hour per year, a plant of the size of Diablo Canyon, can reduce average electricity prices by 1 cent, that means that a plant this size can save $6.8 billion in electricity prices over the course of 40 years. So it's a small amount immediately, but over time it increases. Again, we're not quantifying this sort of thing. We're ourselves, we need to make these arguments. And now, this is the fun one, tourism. This is an article on the British press where they are talking about doing what they call a Lido, which is the word for a spa, an onsen, I guess, on Sizewell Sea. And this is the picture. So it's a water park. And if I talk to you, if I tell you, you're about my age or 10 years, 20 years older, the Blue Lagoon, this is what you think about, right? This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this Blue Lagoon in Iceland. That makes more sense, right? I'm not sure how many of you knows that this is actually wastewater from their geothermal plant. This generates between $120 and $150 million per year to Iceland. Why can't we build something around a nuclear power plant that's either touristic this way, or it can be a water park, or it can be a natural preserve? You know, in the US, in St. Lucie, in Florida, we have manatees. It's beautiful. There's so much wildlife. You could have guided tours. This could be an important source of revenue. This could be not just a source of revenue, but a source of pride. We are not doing it. We need to make this argument because no one else is going to do it for us. This is Diablo Canyon here. Diablo Canyon in the background, and all this water park powered with just the wastewater that's warm. Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we making these arguments? And the title of the talk was not just the unexplored benefits, but how to unlock them. And how to unlock these benefits? Well, first, we need more research. We need to quantify exactly those that are not quantified exactly. And we need to be more vocal. Us, as industry, as experts, as advocates, need to get out of our comfort zone and stop and talk about the ways, the safety, yeah, all of that is important. But we also need to start talking about this. We need to start talking about what is possible, about the hope. We're not gonna die because of climate change, because we will save ourselves and we will be able to do all these wonderful things, and we will give you money, government. We will give you money, TECO. But we have been talking a lot about trust in the population. How can people believe us when we tell them, oh, the water that we're dumping in the ocean is safe? Really? Yeah, we measure it. This scientist says so. Okay, let me see. No. Let me touch it. No. Let me drink it. No. Is it any wonder people are not believing you? Really? We need to be proud of what we do. We need to be out there and say, nuclear saves lives. Nuclear can reduce carbon in the air. We can make money out of it. We can make beautiful, fun things about it. You know, we need to stop thinking about the people who don't like us. Some people will always hate us for what we are. For whatever reason, you know, they will hate us. If we let those people not preventing us from delivering our message, those people who might like us or love us or might appreciate what we have to bring to the table will never hear from us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guido. Fantastic presentation.